Do you know that there are sounds everywhere? I know that you don't hear them, but everywhere there's sound. When you open a door, that's a sound. When you knock on a door, what? Ring a doorbell, that's a sound. Right. What's that? What does that mean? Oh, a lion? A lion roar, right. Everything makes a sound. You gonna be right back? I said that if you had a cochlear implant, you could talk on a telephone. Are you telling Amanda that? You're telling? What are you telling Amanda? What? You're telling Amanda about getting an implant?
I was the oldest child in my family, and I'm deaf. I would never say I prefer to be hearing. I really am happy being deaf. It's very peaceful. Who would want to change that? In my heart, I know this is who I am. If somebody gave me a pill that would make me hearing, would I take it? No way. I'd want to go to a hospital and throw it up and go back to being deaf. I want to be deaf. So when all 3 of my children were born deaf too, I thought, great, my kids are just like me. I started signing to my oldest Heather when she was a baby in my arms. And now I look at her and I'm amazed. At 5, she's already fluent in sign. So when Heather came to us and said she wanted this cochlear implant, it really upset me. I felt she was rejecting me and my wife. She wanted to be different. She wanted to hear.
It's very unusual for a 5-year-old deaf child to say that she wants to hear and speak and use the telephone. I think it's because we're the only deaf family in our whole neighborhood. Heather wants to communicate with hearing people. I understand her motivation, but I just want her to be happy the way she is.
A hearing person really can't understand how you could be happy if your child is born deaf, because everyone they know is hearing. So when my brother and his wife had twins and found out one of them was deaf, they were just devastated.
There we go.
When we found out Peter was deaf, we were very upset.
Oh, yeah.
And despite the deafness in the family, when we found out, it was a devastating blow. Peter?
This way.
Finished?
I just have a CD player here that I'd like you to listen to, just to sort of get an idea as to what hearing loss sounds like. They filtered out all of the frequency information above 250 hertz, even more than what your son is getting right now. That, what you just heard, that's probably even better than what your son is getting right now.
I've never heard any simulation of that, so it's pretty amazing.
I didn't know what they could hear or if that's considered hearing.
Being an audiologist for 25 years, it never gets any easier for me to tell a parent that their child is deaf.
Hearing that CD and thinking about Peter, it killed me, and part of me died.
With a cochlear implant, the child will be able to hear. There are some children who are so profoundly deaf that they really don't get a whole lot of benefits from a hearing aid. And in those children, we're able to restore a good deal of hearing by performing this operative procedure, during which we insert an electrode into the snail-like portion of the child's inner ear, the cochlea.
The younger, the better. And why? Because when children are younger, they're learning language, and it becomes a much more natural process than trying to learn language later on.
When we do a cochlear implant in an 18-month-old, that child is able to hear, develop speech, and relates not to deaf people, but to hearing people.
When he was first diagnosed and the audiologist had said, oh, he's an implant candidate, our view was, no way, we've heard, the implant isn't that successful, it's really, don't even bother looking into it. Then word of mouth started trickling down to us that maybe we should investigate it.
And in this classroom, there's several children who were born deaf, came in through our infant program, received cochlear implants at 2.5, 3 years of age, and now have been in our preschool program for a couple of years. And these children are getting ready to go into kindergarten next year.
Wow.
Oh. Hello.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Say hi. Hi. Loud, hi. Hi. Okay, everybody's going to have a turn, okay? All right, Shelby, can you ask everybody, is everybody ready?
Everybody, are you ready?
Go ahead.
Good morning, good morning. How are you? How are you?
Shelby, was she born deaf? Or?
Okay, Shelby was born deaf, and she was implanted, I believe, at about 2.5 years.
And how old is she now?
She was 5 last December.
So in 2.5 years, her speech has gotten that way.
Right. And of course, when her implant's not on, she's a deaf child again.
Right.
Everyone all together. Say, how are you, Karina?
How are you, Karina?
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, good. And you
When we
say,
saw
how
those
good are you,
kids,
Karina?
I was flabbergasted.
Okay, Lindsay.
These kids
How are you,
could
Karina?
hear.
How are you, Karina?
The idea of this cochlear implant surgery is so scary. It's so invasive. They drill through the skull and have to go very deeply inside. I'm afraid that cochlear implants are going to create a bunch of robots. It just doesn't seem right for a deaf person because our natural communication is signing and being in the deaf world. When I was a child, and when my parents spoke, I was completely lost. I would watch their gestures and their body language, but I had no idea what they were saying. I could hardly communicate with them at all. But finally, I learned sign language, and I think that's when my life really began. English is just moving lips. It has no meaning for me. But sign is so visual, it's got emotion. I could communicate for the first time. My fear is that if Heather were implanted, she wouldn't be part of the deaf world or the hearing world. She'd be part of some cochlear implant world. When Heather plays with her hearing friends, she does get frustrated. She turns to her mother and me and asks what they're saying. Well, we don't know either. We're deaf too. I feel so helpless. She wants to communicate with them so badly. So she says she wants a cochlear implant now.
Why do you want a cochlear implant now?
Because I want to hear everything.
Everything?
I need to hear alarms, smoke detectors for fire, and what else?
Many different things.
A saw, nails being hammered into wood, the telephone, a saw cutting down a tree, cars crashing, horns beeping, beep beep, are the people talking in Florida and New York?
Different states, huh? I was closed-minded before. I didn't like the cochlear implant. I thought it didn't fit with the deaf world. But then I remembered what it was like for me as a child. I grew up in a family where I was the only deaf person and where the whole town was hearing. It was very frustrating. I never learned how to speak, and I felt like an outcast. I don't want Heather to have to go through the same frustrations that I did.
I'm willing to look into it, but she's my daughter, and I don't want her to get hurt. I don't want her to be disappointed. I just want to make sure that Heather is happy. If she's happy, I'm happy.
I will talk and I will sign. My friends will be both deaf and hearing. I will try to share things with both deaf and hearing people.
Heather told us that if she learns to speak, she'll help us. And then I realized she'll always be involved with us. She knows that even though she gets a cochlear implant, she'll always be deaf.
If your child was blind, and if there was a surgery to give him eyesight, would you do it? And I know even my parents would say they would do it in a heartbeat. Well, if you would do that, why wouldn't you want to offer your child the best and give him an implant? I'm the oldest of 3 children. My parents are both profoundly deaf. I had to go to speech therapist for many, many years to learn how to speak because I spoke like a deaf child. You know, I would get the ridicules of kids saying nasty things about my parents and the way they spoke. I would have to interpret for them. I would have to be their advocate. I didn't have a childhood. I grew up very fast. When I became older, I sort of rebelled against my parents. I tried for so long to get away from deaf culture and tried so long to not be involved. And then I had a child who was deaf. So I think God prepared me for this challenge.
We made a decision. We've decided to give Peter a cochlear implant and put him in an all-speaking program, not one that teaches sign language.
You're forcing him. Peter doesn't know what it means. He can't hear.
I'm not forcing him. I'm giving him opportunities. There's a difference.
Deaf people will insult him. They'll fight with him.
You think deaf people will look down on him?
Yes, I do.
I don't care what deaf people say. When I told you Peter was deaf, how did you react?
I felt happy.
Happy?
God blessed him.
What do you mean, blessed? Why do you think it's a blessing?
It's the first time we have a deaf member of the family marry. It makes me happy, that's all.
But, Dad, when you were growing up, it was tough, right? And as a deaf person, you had a hard time getting a job, communicating, right? When you were a little boy, how did you feel?
I was alone. No one talked to me. I rode my bike and I was by myself. I just stayed home.
People froze when they saw deaf people. They couldn't even talk to us. I'd say, "What's wrong with you? Come on, what is it?" They were scared of deaf people. Isn't that true?
That's not what I want for Peter, Mom. I want him to grow up with all the possibilities that his twin brother has.
It's Daddy. Look at your brother. Is that Christopher? Yeah, that's Christopher, yeah.
Mary loves this operation. Oh, it is so foolish. I'll take the baby. Mary can go away. Look, if she doesn't want the baby because he's deaf, I'll take him. And he can say bye-bye to Mama. That's all.
In the process of researching the implant for Heather, I started to think maybe this would be something good for me too. I thought that maybe it would give me a better quality of life. I could communicate better and hear sounds.
My wife started talking about a cochlear implant for herself, and I was shocked. I said, "Now you want one? But you're deaf. I thought you were proud to be deaf." She told me that I have to keep an open mind about all this.
cochlear implant because I want to hear sound. I know I'd still be deaf, but maybe I'd feel better about myself. I would feel more comfortable in the hearing world. And I thought I'd go through with it to decide if Heather should get it.
One of the things I want you to understand about the implant is that the results that we see when we implant someone who's been deaf for a long time are not as good as when we implant a young child. For you, you will be able to hear people speaking, their voices, but you really won't be able to understand what they're saying. You will still have to lip read. And in cases where the person can communicate with sign language, you will still be most comfortable using sign language.
When I look at my daughter, she really wants a cochlear implant. She says, I have hearing friends and I want to talk to them.
When we think about a cochlear implant for your daughter, who's 4.5, it's very different because she is at a point where she is still developing language and speech. We would expect, if we implanted her at the age of 4.5, that she would be able to develop near natural speaking skills.
Have you met other deaf people who are 20 to 35 years old and who got an implant as an adult?
Out of our 300 patients, we have only 5 of them that are like yourself. Most of the patients that we see who have been deaf very young or deaf from birth and are older don't really seek implants.
It makes me feel discouraged. I'm not surprised, though. I knew it would be more difficult for an adult to learn language and speech, even with an implant and therapy. I know that. But I've learned that for a younger child, it's not as difficult.
We have to support Heather. She's young and has a lot of potential. For Nita and me, it's not going to work. It's too late, and she decided not to have it. I'm happy that she looked into it and made the decision for herself. But for Heather, it's a different situation.
Tonight I'll meet the girl with the cochlear implant in New Jersey. She's 10 years old and her whole family is deaf, just like ours. New Jersey is really, really far, like 60 miles. We'll drive for hours and hours and days and days. And finally we'll arrive.
This is Stan, Diane, and Nancy. This is Heather, Peter, and Nita.
Do you like the implant?
Of course I like it.
Can you use a telephone?
Yes, with something I plug into my processor.
Can you hear a baby cry?
She can hear a snake tail rattle.
I saw a snake. I could hear it, yes.
Snake is very dangerous. It can choke you. Can you hear the animals in the zoo? The bears growl.
Yes, I can hear animals growl. Any animal.
Can you hear a house collapse?
I never saw a house do that.
Can you hear a car crash?
You think cars crash every day?
I saw it happen one time.
Oh yeah, one time.
Can you hear a ghost say boo?
I've never seen a ghost.
Boo! Oh, I have another question. Can you hear different people talking at school?
Well, really, no one just speaks. All the kids in my class are deaf, so they sign too. And sometimes they don't speak at all. But when I play with my hearing friends and use my cochlear implant, sometimes I understand them and sometimes I don't.
Oh, really? Because I've heard people say that with a cochlear implant you can understand everything.
No, not 100% like hearing.
So can you show me how well you speak?
Bà đêm y đê xì, bà bà tự đêm y bò phim,
My mom's name is Jane. My daddy's name is Shan. I live in a town in New Jersey. I have two puppies. And one dog.
Nancy speaks sometimes at home, but being deaf, we can't tell if her speech is any good. So I ask my parents, and they tell me she speaks very well. Like perfect.
Who do you socialize most with, hearing or deaf?
Mostly deaf people.
Your family is deaf, and all your friends are deaf. So how do you feel that you're the only family with an implant? How does that feel?
We never thought about it. We're positive people. There's no room for negativity here. We just want her to be happy.
I've got one last question. Which do you like better, wearing a hearing aid or having the implant? What do you prefer?
I prefer the cochlear implant. I really do.
I gotta say, I appreciate your openness. This is making us feel better. You're giving us good feedback. You know, I'm getting information from so many hearing people. I've had enough of that. We're deaf. You know what I mean? We're the same. Forget hearing people.
I still need proof that the cochlear implant really works. I want to make sure it would be right for Heather.
Do you want to look at my implant? I got it 2 years ago. There's a microphone. The microphone goes on here. And now I hook up, and now I can hear. And now I can hear. I lost my hearing when I was already grown up. You want to touch it? You want the same? See this? Look at the processor. That's louder. Good girl. I like it very much. Makes everything loud. I can hear birds. Heather, do you hear birds now? No.
No, I'll hear them later.
Heather, you want to tell me why you want a cochlear implant?
Because hearing people don't sign.
Do you have good speech? Let me hear your voice. Shelby, Heather wants to get a cochlear implant. Like Karina, like Lindsay, like Shelby, like who else?
Danielle.
Christopher?
These. Brown. Turkey. Cherry. Oh, here. I like it. Why is everybody talking and no one signs?
Because this school focuses on speaking.
Who? All of them?
Yes. At this school, they teach using speech.
How do they feel?
Feel about what? The implant?
Shelby, how do you like your cochlear?
I don't like it. I can hear better. I'm falling off. Do you want to play?
Shelby, ask her, would you like to eat something?
Do you want something to eat?
Shelby, take her by her hand.
Yeah?
Take her hand.
It was such a struggle for Heather. She tried to communicate with them, but none of them knew how to sign, and they knew nothing about deaf culture. So they don't have any deaf identity or self-esteem. I feel bad for them because they're only focusing on speech. It's because they all have hearing parents. I have to do more research because I want Heather to have both worlds, to be able to go back and forth, to speak and to sign.
You remember Heather?
Heather is thinking about getting an implant. like you. See, right now she has hearing aids. Can we show Heather your implant? This is Shelby's cochlear implant. It has given her what she never could have gotten from hearing aids. This is the magnet that helps Shelby to hear. And underneath, if you take it off, you see? If you feel it, there's a little bump. Do you want to feel it? Feel it? That's the internal part. That's the part that they do when they have surgery. Shelby wants to sing to you. Okay, go ahead.
Wheels on a bus go round and round, round and round, round and round. The wheels on a bus go round and round, all through the town.
Oh, excuse me.
As the interpreter, did you understand what Shelby was saying? Were the words clear to you?
Yes, I understand her clearly. The voice was very clear. Yes.
I'm just explaining to Shelby she doesn't understand the use of sign language because she's never been exposed to it. They can't hear anything either, and they don't have an implant and they don't have hearing aids. So this is the way they know how to talk. Okay? Okay. Give it to Heather and let her read like you read, okay?
Heather, why don't you sign? The interpreter will speak. If you sign, then she'll voice for you.
No, I don't want to sign. I want to speak.
Sign the story. It's your language.
No.
You sign, she'll speak.
Just leave her be.
Now, come on. I want you to sign the story, Heather.
I want to speak.
All right, let her be.
All right.
Is he in the piano? No. His spot. Is he under the bed? Try the basket.
Okay. I know that we come from a deaf world and you are from the hearing world. But I want to know if you did any research to find out about deaf history or sign language before you had the implant done on your daughter. Or did you just go ahead with it without any real information?
I guess we both felt that there were more options available to her if she were able to hear. That life for her would be easier, more normal, where she wouldn't have any restrictions. Even a profession, you know, such as surgeons, I mean, something so simple, but if you can't rely on sign language and do surgery.
Does Shelby think of herself as a deaf person or a hearing person?
Yes, I'd like to know that. What is her view of herself? Do you have any idea how she views herself with the cochlear implant?
She views herself as a hearing person. Without doubt, she definitely does. She doesn't know the deaf life at all.
Do you want to go outside with Heather and play? Ask Heather if she wants to play with you.
You want to play?
It seems that with a cochlear implant, she doesn't use sign language. Why? Don't you allow it? When Shelby's 6 or 7, if she comes to you then and wants to sign, will you tell her no, or will you let her do it?
They feel from the professionals that we've spoken to, speech therapists, etc., that sometimes the children may use it as a crutch and not be able to fully develop their speech and language. I know the deaf culture is a very, very important part of your life, and I guess it's hard for us to understand why you would want to keep Heather in that world and not broaden her horizons.
Oh, we would love for Heather to get involved with both worlds. Deaf people, hearing people, everything. But the point of this for us is that we're worried that the cochlear implant will change her identity. It was really wrong for me to meet them. I felt they were smothering me and they thought I was stupid. But I'm just trying to do what's best for my family. Maybe Shelby's family feels ashamed of her deafness or embarrassed. Shelby's going to grow up thinking she was implanted because it's bad to be deaf.
Nita, she's happy in the hearing world. Leave her alone. Why does she have to have a deaf identity?
Because she doesn't even know what her deafness is. She has no idea because her parents didn't tell her she's deaf. She asks, "What is sign language?" Mary, what is that? I felt so bad. I was really hurt. She doesn't sign at all. Not even one word. And she acts like a hearing person.
Why is it so important to be deaf? Yes, deaf people have beautiful language, but you miss out on so many other beautiful things in the world, like music.
I don't care about music. I can't hear it.
It's hearing a baby cry for the first time, or being outside and hearing the beautiful rain. You can hear the rain falling on the ground.
Mary, you don't understand. Wait a minute. You are hearing. You can hear. I never hear. For me, this is normal. I can see the beautiful rain. I can taste the rain on my lips. It doesn't matter to me to hear it. It makes no sense to me.
But Nita, you never experienced hearing. I know what you're missing.
I thought about everything everyone said to me, and I've decided to just disregard it and from now on make the decisions for myself. People have been saying, "Oh, the cochlear implant is going to make it better for Heather. She'll be able to communicate better." But I think my husband and I are going to do our best to give her a good education so she'll be able to have a good life without the implant. Do you know why your father and I decided that the cochlear implant is not a good idea for you? It's because you're still young, you're only 5 years old, and you've started to understand your deaf culture. You already have your language, sign language.
Deaf culture?
Deaf culture means that there's a group of deaf people who sign and live together. Hearing people use speech, that's their language in their culture. You're already involved in deaf culture because your parents are deaf, and we all sign together.
Is it easy to wear the implant and become hearing?
No, honey, it's not easy. Do you care that you're not getting the implant now?
I don't care. I don't care. You know a little bit. You know deaf sign. Say nice to meet you. Watch. Nice to meet you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Chris. Happy birthday to you. Oh, make a wish.
Big grandma? Big grandma.
I love you. The book on the cochlear? The hearing book? Oh, I have it home. I forgot it. Maybe later I'll go get it, okay?
You know, we changed our minds. We don't want a cochlear implant now. We want her to wait. She's already confused. If she had an implant, they're telling me that she's not allowed to sign and she has to speak. We're not ready for that. We decided to put it off, and we feel much better about it.
Suppose when she starts to get older and she sees other children with cochlear, and she's saying, "Why don't I have that?" Why make her wait and suffer more?
You don't understand. She'll be missing out on deaf life.
Forget deaf. You are a mother first, and you're a father first. You do what's right for that child.
Heather said to me, "I'm not ready to have a cochlear implant. I'm too afraid." I said, "That's fine. So give her time."
It should not be her decision. You don't talk about this in front of the child because it's not her decision. It's your decision.
Oh, right. Come on, Ma.
Wait a minute. She says to me, "Grandma, She says, I want to communicate. This is what she said. Communicate. No. She says, I want to hear. Same as you. What is that? So am I lying?
You're really pushing. Stop pushing me, Mom.
I want to push for her. Heather is an exception. She's extremely bright. She's a perfect candidate for cochlea.
I'll decide what's best for Heather. I'm her father.
But that's your daughter. Don't you want the best?
I know what's best for her.
No, you don't.
I know what I'm doing.
My opinion, you don't know what's best for her.
You're worried about what other people will think.
I know what you went through growing up. I know the frustrations you had.
No, you don't. You don't have any idea what I went through.
What?
You don't know what it's like to be deaf.
Peter, I walked through the supermarkets with you in a basket. Other people looking at you with hearing aids and making fun of you.
I don't care what hearing people think.
Peter, you don't understand. You weren't there. You didn't experience it. You did not experience it as a parent. She will suffer more. She's going to suffer.
That's your thinking.
No, it's not my thinking. Talk to the educators. Go to the conferences. The deaf world is changing.
Look at me, Ma. Look at me. Are you telling me I don't have a successful life?
I have a tough life.
Look at me now. What do you think?
Look, you're my son. I raised you from a little boy, and I love you.
Oh, come on. You're changing your whole attitude.
I'm not changing my attitude.
You are.
Oh, really? If you were born today, tomorrow you would go to a doctor for a cochlear implant.
Thank God. I don't want an implant.
Fine, you don't need a cochlear. You don't want it, don't take it.
Right.
So what?
Everybody's trying to pressure me.
I could care less what you do.
Chris, did I complain to you? Did I complain to you about your decision? Did I? Did I say a word to you?
I'm not going to get angry because it's your daughter. Did I complain about your decision?
Did I complain to you?
You want to do it for your daughter? That's your issue.
Heather is my child, and I am not being closed-minded. Hearing people have their own way of looking at things. I have a deaf family. That is my life. She's always giving me a hard time.
Peter, all I'm telling you, as a parent and as a grandparent, you are choosing a tough road for Heather.
I'm the parent. You're not the parent.
I said grandparent.
I'm the one who makes the decisions.
I said if you will understand.
This is my decision.
Peter.
I never knew that you really didn't accept deafness until now.
Peter, you only want to see what you want to see.
It's obvious you don't accept it.
I would give my life for her.
It's just a gamble.
It is not a gamble.
It is.
Years ago it was a gamble. It is not a gamble now. Breaks my heart because I know what she's going to go through. They don't realize it. They don't know what the future holds for her. The frustrations that they went through, they don't remember because they were too young, but I saw the isolation. I saw them, being ignored because they're deaf, because people can't communicate with them, and I don't blame the hearing world for that. I mean, they're a minority. The hearing world is not going to learn their sign language. I don't want to make Heather hearing. I want her to make her life easier. I can accept her deafness. What bothers me is it could be easier for her.
Hearing people think that deafness is limiting, that we can't succeed. I say no way. No way. Look at me. I'm deaf, and I'm successful. I work with computers at Solomon Smith Barney downtown on Wall Street. I have to face the hearing world every day at work. And it's tough.
5, 6, 4.
No, it's the one after that. This is the one he's doing.
I'm dependent on emails and interpreters. And to be honest, sometimes, yeah, I do feel limited. But the hearing world can be very, very selfish. There's a lot of discrimination against deaf people.
And Monday morning, we'll have new configuration of cubes, and we'll move back in.
The honest truth is, I probably can't go that much further up the corporate ladder.
Mom, you know we're going forward with the implant. Next week, Peter's going to the audiologist for tests, and then he'll definitely get the cochlear implant in January.
A friend of mine asked me why he's getting it. I told him you wanted it, and they were very surprised. He feels sorry for him. What can I do?
You mean you're embarrassed about what other people will say about it?
I'm embarrassed because you're making him hearing so he'll speak well.
My family is all hearing, and he is the only one who's deaf.
His aunts and uncles are all deaf. He has a big deaf family. It doesn't matter.
It does matter. I want him to have the opportunity to be anything he wants to be.
Oh, you're such a lousy daughter.
Mom says I'm a lousy daughter. She just said that.
Oh, no, stop that.
She said I'm a lousy daughter because I want to implant my son. How do you feel?
How do I feel?
Yes, Dad, how do you feel? Do you think I'm a lousy daughter?
No.
Who's lousy?
Marry my daughter. My deaf friends wonder why a person like her, who helps deaf people, who even interprets for deaf people, wouldn't love her own child even if he's born deaf. A mother should love her child the way he is.
Deaf people think that the hearing people are trying to make them hearing. Not true. I don't mean to insult you, but people have to realize that the world is changing. It's not to hurt deaf people, it's to help them. I know it's hard for deaf people to accept this because it's like the floor has been pulled out from underneath a deaf person. I understand that. But you still can't stop the future. You can't stop progress from happening.
Today, when parents find out their child is deaf, they don't know what to do with the child, and they just force an implant on them.
These parents are selfish.
My opinion is if you're born deaf, that's it.
You're right. I agree with you.
Now you're all gonna come after me. We have decided to give our son, Peter, a cochlear implant.
That might be.
I want to give my son opportunities to live in both worlds.
You feel that deaf people are inferior.
That's right.
So you want to implant your child in the hope that he will have a chance in the future. Is that what you're thinking?
It's not because we think deaf people are limited. It's because the world's view of deaf people makes things more difficult for them.
Well, look at me. I work for the New York Times. I've been a supervisor of 25 hearing people for the past 5 years, and I am deaf.
I'm a foreman in my job, and I control the whole shop. My boss can't live without me, and I'm stone deaf.
A child is not a guinea pig. I think that the parent who forces an implant on his child is not considering that child's feelings. The body belongs to the child. When he grows up, his parents can ask him then if he wants an implant.
But this is the best age for him to get an implant. So he'll have the best opportunity to learn speech and language. If we wait until he's 15, it'll be too late. You know, we're not taking his deafness away. He'll know he's deaf. I'll teach him his deaf culture.
Parents making.
Do we think the implant can kill deaf culture, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Once someone is implanted, he will migrate to the hearing world and won't bother with the deaf world.
We can't determine what would have happened if the technology was available a long time ago. Who knows? Maybe we'd all have implants today. Who knows?
Pretty soon, we will look like robots.
Not all deaf people can develop good speech and sound like hearing people, maybe just 20%. So deaf culture will persist for many, many more years.
Oh, yes.
Deaf culture is wonderful.
I think at times they're right that I am betraying all I know. I still am torn because here I took it as a sign from this woman like, look, this child is just like me. You know, there's nothing wrong. He's part of our world. Leave him alone. And that kills me. That kills me. But at the same time, I want the best for my child, and I want to give him the best opportunity I can. And the only way I know how is that there's this technology now that will enable him to become more functional in the hearing world.
The path is to hear. That's the path. That's what the world is like outside. It is not intended for people to have a handicap. It happens. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not intended.
Dad, I know what you think about the cochlear implant. I really do. But it seems to me that you just don't trust my judgment.
Yeah, I don't trust that judgment right now, no.
Yeah.
At one time,
At
one time, you and your wife said you were going to do the cochlear.
We didn't say that.
Look, you were supporting it. You were supporting it.
It's not so simple.
Peter, at one time you were going to go for the cochlear implant, okay? When Nita went to find out if she could have it done and found out it may be too late, everything went the other way. You changed your mind.
You don't know that.
Well, she's not doing it, is she?
Yeah, but she made that decision on her own.
Wait.
She decided that herself. She did, Dad. She made her own choice.
What?
No, I think you're misunderstanding.
If I didn't know you, I would say that you were an abusing parent. Because you have an opportunity to take a handicap and correct it.
Wait a minute, Dad. Dad, I'm the one who told my wife to take Heather to the cochlear implant school. Do you remember that? When Heather came back home, she herself said to me that she didn't want it.
We asked what happened. Says my mother told me that it's not good.
You think I'm lying to you?
You are preventing a cure for deafness to take place because you are so involved with the deaf that you really want your children to continue to be deaf. And if they function in the hearing world, that's fine, but they got to be deaf first. That's wrong.
Dad, I have a deaf family. I plan to work very hard for them.
What about a family of cripples? A family of cripples, okay, who can't walk.
That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about an implant. That's different.
No, it's not different. It's a handicap. It's a handicap. And therefore, when their children are born, they should break their legs so that they're crippled.
Wait a minute, Dad. You think deafness is a handicap, but I don't think deafness is a handicap. That's from my heart. I just can't hear.
Yes.
Look, Dad, you've raised me to be my own man. So now I'm being strong for my kids. If my children grow up to be successful, then what will you say?
When they grow up, I'll say congratulations. What happens if they don't?
Come on, you can't predict the future. I can't.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't predict the future, but you can give your children every opportunity that there is, which you're not. You're not giving them all the opportunities. You are picking for them.
Ma, I saw two different families. One deaf and one hearing. The girl from the deaf family didn't speak well even though she had a lot of speech therapy. Her cochlear implant just didn't work. So what would happen if we implanted Heather?
I understand what you're saying, and yes, that's possible. A deaf family, it may not work. But that's because that deaf family maybe is not making a full commitment to give them speech therapy, to expose them to as much as they can be exposed to in the hearing world. If you're not ready to do that, then you're right. Then you're right. Don't give them a cochlear.
In my heart, Dad, I know Heather will be successful. I mean, that's my belief. I think that the cochlear implant is a waste for our family.
You'd have to use the term abusive. I find it hard using that because they're my children. And they're good parents. But I can't say they're abusive. They're good parents. But they're fearful. And I understand their fear, and I'm trying to get them beyond this fear. They have to see that these are their children and they are parents first. They have to stop hurting them. And to me, they're hurting them. Okay. Now, here, look. Now watch. See what we're doing? See? We're separating it. Can you say that? Separating? Terrific. Separating. That means 1/4. 1 quarter. Quarter. Good. Heather, where are you? Here it is. Okay. Come on over here. What is this? What's this? You're fantastic. Fantastic. Measuring cup. What does it smell like? Yes. It smells like a cookie, but it also smells like cinnamon. Cinnamon. Cinnamon.
E-A-B.
Very good. Cinnamon. Why do you want to speak so good? Why? That's a pretty good reason. You want to talk with hearing people. Yes, with me. And Grandpa.
I love you.
I love you more.
I
love you more.
My mother thinks it's tragic that Heather can't speak like a hearing person. And I know that some people think that deaf people not implanting their children is abusive. But you know what? It's the same thing with hearing people. They automatically implant their children and they don't know anything at all about deafness. And I say, that's abusive.
This is a song about colors, colors. We see them all around. There is red on a stop sign, green on a tree, blue in the sky.
Shelby is doing amazing with the implant in first grade. I was actually surprised because I didn't know how she would be going into a mainstream class. I mean, the first day, I didn't know if she was going to come home crying. The transition was remarkable.
Shelby, what's your favorite color?
Rainbow.
Rainbow.
She just fell right in to the classroom and made new friends and is listening to the teacher and is doing everything a normal first grader does.
Everybody, today is our
18th day of school.
A lot of times when you say, okay, kids, let's get up, and kids are getting up and they're pulling their chairs out, and that noise, Shelby can miss the next few instructions. But with this sound field box on her desk and with the teacher wearing the microphone, her voice amplified, Shelby can hear her.
Mix it up, Shelby. Mix it, mix it, mix it.
It's just by accident.
That's okay.
Any reaction from the other kids?
I explained to the children, Shelby has a cochlear implant, and then I asked them if they wanted to touch it. And all the kids went like this, and the girls, but then there was this one little girl that raised her hand. And once she got in line to touch it, everybody else wanted to come up. They all touched it. And they all were, you know, very satisfied with it. It was
part of it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I don't think she realizes she's deaf.
Perfect.
She thinks she's just like everybody else.
You're about to implant your son, and when I see him, I'm gonna cry. I think you're doing it because you really don't accept his deafness. You're thinking about your parents and you're afraid. When you look at your parents, you look down at them because they're uneducated and you don't want Peter to be like them. You don't want your children to be like any of us.
No, I accept his deafness. I love my son. But if Peter can have a normal life, why not let him have it?
What do you mean normal?
He can be whatever he wants, and he'll speak for himself.
You want him to be brilliant. You want him to speak. You're making it sound like you don't want Peter to go to a deaf school because you think the education is so bad.
Nita, deaf schools stink. I don't want that for him.
Oh, that hurts.
No,
oh,
Nita,
no. Wait
come
a
on.
minute, wait a minute. Obviously, you think the deaf people are behind. It doesn't seem that way to me. Not to me. That's not right. No, no.
The average deaf high school graduate reads at the 4th grade level. That's it. That's all.
No. Oh, no, not all.
I didn't say all. I said most.
Oh, God. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You said, oh, this really bothers me.
I'm not saying that deaf kids are idiots. No, I'm just saying the schools stink.
Deaf parents with deaf children know how to get them a good education. Everybody wants their kids to have a good education. But for you to implant your child at 11 months, oh, no. No, no. He's still just a baby. You should love your child. Give your heart to your child. And when he gets older, the time is right, then give him an implant. Don't destroy his emotional life. He's a beautiful, natural deaf baby.
After talking to Mary, I was upset and angry. But it kind of woke me up. I asked my husband, and he said it's true. Some deaf high schools do turn out students who only read at a 4th grade level. I realized I have got to focus on my kids and find the best school for them.
I knew there was a deaf community in Maryland, And I've heard the school there is one of the best in the country.
Heather probably wanted the cochlear implant before because she wasn't exposed to the deaf world. In Maryland, there are so many deaf people that she could really get involved with the deaf community. And that's what we want.
Hi there, who are you?
Heather.
Heather, nice to meet you. And who are you?
Tim.
Can you spell it?
T-I-M.
Oh, Tim. Hi.
Okay, come on. We're going to read a story. Do you know the story of Mrs. Wishy-Washy? Everybody, take your seats. Heather, come on, join us.
Oh, lovely mud, said the pig. Oh, lovely mud, said the cow. And she rolled in it around and around and around.
Hold on, shh. What do you think happens next?
The cow gets a bath? I was right.
That's right. In went the cow. Wishy-washy, wishy-washy.
That's good. That's really good.
At the cochlear implant school in Long Island, they weren't signing. And Heather felt left out and couldn't get involved because everyone spoke. She felt alienated. But here, at this school, she's part of the group. Heather walked into that classroom with her eyes wide open. She was so excited when she saw those kids. She jumped right in and got involved. There was no stress on her to think about her speech. Communication was so natural for her. She didn't have to think about speaking or hearing.
Back on Long Island, there's a huge hearing community, and they're in charge and give us orders. But they really don't understand our deaf culture. I've tried to explain over and over. I just can't imagine having to continue doing this while my children are growing up. I don't want to deal with it.
I understand how you feel. The city of Frederick has brought together deaf Americans. There's America, the big America, and deaf communities like this one within America. People here are very sensitive to the deaf community because this school has been here for over 130 years.
We went to the store today, and I asked where I could find a baby bottle, and the sales lady signed back, aisle 10. I was so surprised. I was amazed.
It's true. Here in Frederick, you'll often find waiters who sign, or bank tellers, doctors, nurses. There's a lot of deaf awareness here.
I just feel inspired here. I come here to the deaf world and I feel safe. In the hearing world, I feel locked up in jail. I feel like I'm being held back. I really want to move here.
Painting is allowed, but you have to be able to cover it with one coat of paint when you leave. Whenever you move out, okay?
We've talked it over, and Nita and I feel it's right for our family to move to Maryland.
Peter and I are the parents of these 3 deaf children, and we will do what we think is best. People can't tell us what to do. They tell us we should implant our child, put our children in oral programs, that they should have speech therapy every day, we should do this and that because of their future. I feel like I'm being forced to adhere to their wishes, but you know what? I am throwing it all away. We're going to decide what's best for our children.
We want to move to Maryland because we believe that's what's best for the kids.
All we feel is that you're putting a fence around the children because you believe it's the right thing in raising them in that community.
You're moving, you are limiting your children, you are forcing them. Wait a minute. You are forcing them to live only in a deaf world. You are not
true, Marion. That is not true.
You told me before, I don't want my daughter to suffer the same way I did. I would want her to hear music. I would want her to enjoy life. I did not have that. Well, what are you doing now?
Marion, when I saw the kids in that school, I realized that because of their sign language, their language and writing abilities were equal to the hearing kids.
You may be 100% correct. Maybe it's the best school for the deaf in the world. My feeling, you are moving your family to escape an issue that's going on here. Cochlear implant.
Ma, I know how you feel about the cochlear implant, but I don't want the implant for Heather. That's it. That's my final decision. In Maryland, we'll have more opportunities, more interpreters, more communication. Deaf people are accepted there.
Living in Maryland would be better for our kids. We're a deaf family. Peter and I grew up deaf. We know what it's like growing up in a hearing culture. We could do better for our kids. You don't understand
You
deaf
only want to
people's
accept
feelings.
one way, deaf way. There are both worlds here. You only want deaf world for your children. They have to live in both worlds. You, why did you go for cochlear? Why?
She was curious.
Curious? That's bull. She said to me, I want to be like the same. I want to hear the music. I want to dance. That's wanting to live in both worlds.
So you're saying we're limiting our children? That's ridiculous. We'll give them the best of everything.
Excuse me, can you read a recipe all by yourself with not help? Do you understand a recipe, all of it?
You really have to ask me that.
You understand?
I don't understand how to read a recipe, but it's not my fault. My parents didn't teach me.
No kidding. But
I am teaching Heather.
And what proof do you have that you're going to be taught all that?
Wait.
That Heather and
It's
Timothy
hard.
are going to be
Wait.
taught all that.
I feel so much pressure about this. I've had enough.
Because you don't want to accept it. You are running away. Are you running away because I'm pressuring you?
No, come on,
If you
Ma.
wanted the best for your kids' future, you would be giving them a cochlea and the opportunity to have both worlds. You have proof?
I feel like your mother keeps stifling me. I feel like she's controlling us. I want her off my back.
I know, honey, I know. Ignore her. You're the mother. We're going to move on with our plans, okay? She's only the grandmother. Just ignore her.
I thought your parents would be proud of us, that they would at least trust that we're doing the right thing. But they think we're making the wrong decision.
That's my parents. That's who they are. If my father sees that we're right, he'll be all right with it. But my mom is just being so heartless.
I tried to share how I feel. She wouldn't let me. She just kept putting me down. Made me so angry. I tried so hard.
Just ignore her. You take it too hard. When we get to Maryland, you'll be much, much happier, I promise you. You'll meet a lot of new people there. There's a big deaf community there that will accept you for who you are. What's most important is our happiness. We've been through so much. Come here.
Each one of our parents that come through get the National Association for the Deaf's position statement on cochlear implants. And I think for you in particular, it's important that you read through this. The position of the NAD is that, and to quote them, they deplore the decision of the Food and Drug Administration to support implantation in children.
They could say what they want. They could bring anything they want. They could bring the president of the NAD to my house. I really don't care. It's a child that has this hearing loss. We're providing him an avenue to hear, and that's the end of it. The rest of it is bull.
You know, my pitch is going to be blasted on a dartboard, and the NAD is going to be throwing things at me because we're the poster child of what not to do according to their rules.
If you think things are negative now, when you go and do this, the response of those deaf members of your family are going to be extraordinarily strong at that point. And the obvious reason for that is that you're taking a member of their society, of their culture, and you're pulling them out. And all of that stuff about what's the matter, we're not good enough for him, what's the matter, you're ashamed of us, what's the matter, this is not the best life for him, We've done perfectly well as deaf people. We're proud of being deaf. We're happy people. Why do you feel compelled to have to do this?
In a couple of years, when Peter is responding, his cousins are going to be turning around and asking a lot of questions. So I think that that's when the real fury is going to come up, is when the questions are going to be raised, and how do you deal with something like that?
When you see Peter with the implant, will that make you change your mind and want it?
No, I don't want it.
You don't want it. Why?
I don't want a cochlear implant.
That's fine. It's your decision, whatever you're comfortable with.
You told me you decided.
We decided together. Remember, we agreed.
Oh.
My mother-in-law. Hi. Nice to meet you, Doctor.
Nice to meet you. Hello, hi, how are you?
You know,
how's it going?
He's very clingy.
Oh, that's a sign of good mental health, you know.
Very clingy.
How are you doing this morning,
Doctor?
What time did you get up?
About 3 o'clock.
But why couldn't you sleep?
Because I didn't feel like it. I'm old.
Were you up all night worrying about the implant?
No.
I was worried. I was up all night.
Well, I don't feel worried. I feel calm and relaxed.
Well, I feel worried. Yes, I really do.
It'll be fine.
When my children were born, I would have never dreamed that, we'd be sitting here, today, waiting for my grandson to have the surgery on his ears to make him hear.
What if we lose deafness in the future and there are no more deaf people?
That's why you're upset, and I understand that, and Peter and Nita, I am sure, feel the same way. People will never forget what deafness is about, because it's going to be history.
Ready to test? Here's the transmitter. And now they look beautiful. Okay, they're all fine.
If I gave birth now to Peter, I don't mean to hurt you, but I would definitely have the surgery, because I know what it was like to raise deaf children. Tough, very tough.
Okay, so now we've got to close. Grab our 2 column, please. Hi, everything went real well, no problems, no problems. His face moves, he's breathing well, he's in the recovery room, everything was good.
Oh, good. So how long before we can see him?
Actually, if you go downstairs in about 15 minutes, they'll probably let you in. As soon as he's awake enough to know that someone's there, they'll let you in.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
This makes me want to cry.
I know.
What'd you say?
New life.
New beginning.
Congratulations.
I'm afraid he'll make fun of me.
No, he will never make fun of you.
He'll talk so well, and then I'm afraid he'll hurt me. Oh, I feel so hurt.
I'm gonna go up to see him now.
Wait, if you give birth to another deaf child, would you have the surgery again?
Yes, Mom, I would.
We're both deaf. That's all that matters.
I'm going to connect up the external transmitter here. It's just going to stick right on. Put this right here, hopefully. And then open it. There we go. Let me begin by telling you a few things. What we're going to do is we're going to start to increase the current a little bit on the most low-frequency electrode that we've got. One of several things may happen. We may not see anything at all. We may see a negative response. We may see some sort of searching or blinking or any of that. So we're going to be paying very close attention in terms of watching him, because that's what we really need to see. Okay? Even though you've waited a long time for this, and he's waited a long time, his ears were just born today. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, go. Hi! That was so good. You did a great job. Actually.
Good boy.
This is still relatively low. 1, 2, 3, go. You couldn't ask for anything better, guys, I gotta tell you. Okay, guys, right now he's been listening to each of the electrodes, which really is, you know, nothing very interesting, although he's been great. We're going to turn the speech on.
Good boy.
1, 2, 3. Okay. Peter. 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 Hi, Peter. Hi, baby boy. How are you? Hi, buddy. His ears are exactly 5 minutes old, okay? So that's really the critical thing at this point, to expose him to as much sound.
Chris,
and to make
this is
him
amazing. Look at this.
And to make him very
turning
happy
to her
about it.
anytime she's speaking. Peter. Hi. Hi. Hi, Peter. And Mama. It's Mommy. Peter! How big is Peter? So big. Ah. Good boy. Good boy.
You hear, Daddy? That's my boy. You copying, Daddy? It's a miracle. You hear, Daddy? The cochlear implant is providing my son with freedom and opportunity and the key to the world. That's the opportunity that I'm providing for my son. That's the criminal that my brother's doing to his family, and it's abuse. And I'll tell you right now, I stand behind my decision 1,000%. Because my son will never go through what my brother had to go through. Deaf culture, as they know it, is done.
Maybe it's true. Deaf people will become extinct, and my heart will be broken. Deaf culture is something to value and cherish. It's my culture. If your hearing culture was wiped out, hearing people would cry and feel a loss. Well, so would I.
Good boy. Say hi again.